now available in paperback and e-readers. The Temptation of John Haynes. Give in to temptation and pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. It's looking like Fani Willis might possibly be disqualified from trying to prosecute former President Donald Trump on charges of tampering with the 2020 election.
Tonight, it's on for Thursday. A court hearing will take place over whether to disqualify Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade from their election fraud case against former President Donald Trump and others. And could Mr. Trump himself be in the Atlanta courtroom for it all? 11 Alive's John Sherrick has the details tonight.
All right.
Judge Scott McAfee's decision is not what prosecutors wanted to hear. The judge telling DA Fani Willis and her special prosecutor Nathan Wade that he may take them off of their election fraud case against former President Donald Trump and others.
I think for me, the key phrase from Judge McAfee was the appearance of conflict of interest.
I think it's clear that disqualification can occur if evidence is produced demonstrating an actual conflict or the appearance of one.
I think that really is the part here that may get Willis into trouble and Wade, is this appearance of impropriety, even where there might be everything above board.
Attorney John Acevedo with Emory University School of Law says Judge McAfee may be erring on the side of caution. Fani Willis, who hired Nathan Wade for the case, admits that she and he are now in a personal relationship with each other, but they both insist that none of Wade's legal fees from Fulton County are benefiting Willis, as defendants are alleging. Willis attorney Anna Cross.
The defense is not bringing you facts. The defense is not bringing you law. The defense is bringing you gossip.
Defense attorney Ashley Merchant.
We have a right to explore whether or not there was a personal or financial benefit to Ms. Willis from this relationship.
Former Fulton County prosecutor Darrell Cohen believes the judge may end up keeping Willis and Wade on the case, but that the damage to their credibility has been done.
The optics are so bad. The optics are just terrible. And because of that, potential jurors are going to be watching, which will influence them in some way.
And now the Washington Post reports that Trump plans to be at the hearing Thursday. Trump's Atlanta attorney calling the report speculation, but not denying it as of now. In Atlanta, John Sherrick, 11 Alive News.
It looks like the walls are closing in on Atlanta prosecutor Fani Willis. Now, Fani Willis was rising to prominence in Georgia's political circles when she announced that she would be filing charges against former President Donald Trump as related to charges of looking to tamper with the 2020 presidential election. And after making that announcement, Fani Willis thought that she was going to be on her way to becoming the next big black political superstar in Georgia politics. However, after making that announcement that she would be looking to prosecute former President Donald Trump, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, and many associates of Donald Trump, her career has taken a turn for the worse. And instead of her being able to celebrate her success of trying to prosecute a former president, Fani Willis is now dealing with a pair of political scandals that could possibly wind up ending her entire political career. Now, the first of these scandals is one that may lead to Fani Willis possibly being disqualified from even being able to prosecute former President Donald Trump, because according to reports, it's alleged that Fani Willis had an alleged improper relationship with the special prosecutor Nathan Wade, who she appointed to help work on the Trump case, and he was paid more than anybody in the office of the Atlanta prosecutor's office, because according to reports, he was paid $654,000, whereas other members of the DA's office in Atlanta were paid far less. And many believe that this was due to the improper relationship that Fani Willis allegedly had with Nathan Wade. Now, people are trying to get Fani Willis and Nathan Wade off of this case because they believe that the relationship that they had disqualifies Fani Willis from being able to objectively prosecute the case. Moreover, there are questions as related to her relationship and the timeline of her relationship, because if it can be proven that she allegedly lied about that relationship with Nathan Wade, it could wind up making it where she not only gets disqualified from prosecuting this case, but also has people questioning her character as related to being able to lead the prosecutor's office. Now, the second scandal that Fani Willis is currently dealing with is one that allegedly reports that she allegedly misappropriated funds from the Atlanta prosecutor's office and federal funds. And according to this report, an individual in the prosecutor's office tried to warn her about spending money in the prosecutor's office on certain items. And this whole case, as related to the misappropriation of funds, actually has several witnesses who are looking to be whistleblowers and looking to go out and testify against Fani Willis as related to her misappropriating funds. Now, both of these scandals are two that could basically wind up destroying Fani Willis's whole professional reputation and could wind up ending her career in an ignominious fashion if these allegations can be proven true. And this whole situation with Fani Willis basically shows what happens when you have a black bootlick who thinks that they're going to rise up in the social and political circles of America, but doesn't really understand the concept of the subtle politics transpiring around them. And that's basically what happened here with Fani Willis. Fani Willis basically was one of these individuals who did not understand the subtle politics transpiring around her as related to the system of white supremacy. And because she didn't understand the subtle politics transpiring around her, she basically was set up to be a political crash test dummy by all of those individuals in the system of white supremacy. And what we're seeing right now is her dealing with the impact as her political career basically crashes and burns at this point. And the reason why Fani Willis's career is on the road to crashing and burning is because Fani Willis, like many other black bootlicks, basically didn't understand that when it comes to the game with white supremacy, it's a rigged game, and it's a rigged game that you will never win, because when it comes to white supremacy, they always know all the rules, and they're willing to change the rules in order to make sure that you lose. And that's what's happening to Fani Willis right now. Fani Willis basically was one of these black women who got caught up in her emotions about being able to go after former President Donald Trump, and thought that this would be the case that would wind up making her career and allowing her to go on to a higher political office, such as the governor, or even a senator, or even possibly even president of the United States. She was spellbound, and she had stars in her eyes, and as she was spellbound and had stars in her eyes about fitting into a bigger box that would be acceptable to white people, she couldn't see how the white supremacists were basically setting her up to take a huge fall. Because when it comes to white supremacy, what they love to do with black people is set them up to be the punchline of a cruel joke. And a cruel joke was basically set up on Fani Willis as related to her career. She was sitting there thinking she was going to be able to actually go after a former president, not understanding that there is no way in hell that any white supremacist would give any black person that kind of power to be able to actually punish white men in the system of white supremacy. Because in the system of white supremacy, a white supremacist isn't going to give a black person that kind of power over a former president, and white supremacy would never allow a black person to be able to punish a white person, and Satan just is not going to cast out Satan in the system of white supremacy, because those guys on the blue side, just like those guys on the red side, want to continue receiving all of their goodies, giveaways, and freebies, and they want to have those written and unwritten social rules that allow them to have the privilege of getting away with all the wrong stuff that they want to do. And what Fani Willis sadly couldn't see, because she couldn't see the subtle politics transpiring around her as related to this political chess game, is she couldn't see that she was basically being used as a pawn as related to these two sides of white supremacy, the red and blue sides looking to attack each other in their political chess game. Now, in this political chess game, again, Satan does not cast out Satan, but it goes on and creates a political theater to make you think that they're going to do something to someone, like in the case of former President Donald Trump. Many actually were sitting there thinking, oh, they're actually going to allow a former president to be prosecuted. But again, in the system of white supremacy, Satan does not cast out Satan, because if Satan casts out Satan, Satan doesn't have any power. And that's what Fani Willis really didn't understand, as she became giddy about the whole prospect of being able to prosecute a former president who was a white man and his white associates. As she became giddy and caught up in her emotions, she thought she was actually going to be able to rise in Georgia's political system, again, never understanding those subtle politics transpiring around her, and how this whole case against Donald Trump was basically, again, political theater designed to scare the former president into not continuing his campaign to run for president in the 2024 election. Because that's what all these charges basically were. They were an attempt to try to scare former President Donald Trump, who already saw 7 steps ahead on the chessboard, that no one was really serious, because if they were really serious, they would have sent white men after former President Trump and his associates, and they would have sent those white men because those white men would have wanted that victory for themselves, and they would not have appointed a trio of black bootlicks, including Fani Willis, New York prosecutor Alvin Bragg, and New York Attorney General Letitia James. All 3 of these political stooges actually thought that they were going to be able to file real charges, not understanding they were political pawns. And when it comes to political pawns, when white supremacy no longer needs them, what they do is take those individuals off the board. And that's basically what's happening here with Fani Willis as related to these scandals. These scandals are deliberately designed to remove her off the board, and remove her off the board so that she cannot be a tool to be weaponized against them, and someone that they can go out here and discredit her as related to her competence. Now, she's sitting there thinking, oh, these scandals just came out of nowhere. No, these scandals didn't just come out of nowhere. They were strategically placed, because really they don't want this trial against former President Trump to go on. And in order to ensure that this trial against former President Trump doesn't go on, what they did was go out and reveal information as related to her quote-unquote improper relationship with Nathan Wade, and then further revealed all of the information as related to the alleged misappropriation of funds as related to the prosecutor's office. Because these politicians possibly knew that all of this was going on and were willing to look away from this, but what they wanted to do was put a spotlight on this, because they didn't want any focus on Donald Trump as related to his 2024 campaign, and they didn't want these trials to continue going on. And in order to make sure that the trial in Georgia doesn't go on, what they wanted to do was sacrifice Fani Willis. And Fani Willis, sadly, because she was caught up in her emotions about all of the success she was receiving as related to being appointed to be the one who would be able to stand at the podium and say that Donald Trump would be charged as related to tampering the 2020 election. She thought that, oh, this race was going to make her career, but ironically, this case is making her career, and it's basically making a white supremacist point that they want to make as related to many black politicians and many prominent black people. What they want to do is appoint the black person to go do a job, and as that person does the job, what they do is start to question that black person's competence. Then they start going into their background and start finding inappropriate things that are allegedly done, like in the case of when she hired her boyfriend to be the special prosecutor for the Trump case. And that basically made people question her ethics, and her ethics and competence were further questioned when allegations came out about her misappropriating funds. Now, misappropriating funds is a very serious charge, because before I came to Strive, there was somebody talking about someone allegedly misappropriating funds there, who was a former fund development director. And misappropriating funds is something that is very serious as related to a prosecutor, because if a prosecutor has been allocated money and given trust by the people, and they're using these funds for their own personal use, that means that this person has compromised ethics. And if you have a person with compromised ethics in your prosecutor's office, that means they are susceptible to grift and graft, and they are susceptible to going out and being able to fix cases. So this basically is a case of Fani Willis's whole credibility being shot. And with this being an election year, many people in the state of Georgia and in the city of Atlanta will be questioning Fani Willis's competency to be able to do her job. And as they question her competency to do her job ethically, this is basically going to lead to Fani Willis possibly being on the brink of losing the election as related to her remaining Atlanta's prosecutor. And this is the same play from the same chess game that has been used on black bootlick politicians for over 50 to 60 years, as I've seen. I've seen this same playbook used on black politicians like David Dinkins, who was the former mayor of New York, who also got caught up in his own hype as the first black mayor, not understanding he was actually being set up to be the last black mayor for over 30 years, as they questioned his competency and his ability to govern. And the same thing happened with Chicago's alphabet mayor, Lori Lightfoot, who was also set up, thought that she was going to be able to govern the city of Chicago. However, the mainstream media did a campaign to demonize her and question her competency. And as they questioned her competency, this led to her losing the primary and winding up becoming a one-term mayor. And the same thing is being set up with Fani Willis, who thought, oh, she was sure to become a superstar if she could prosecute a former president. Unfortunately, what has happened to Fani Willis is, as she was looking to go to trial in an election year, white supremacy basically wound up throwing a monkey wrench in those plans, because again, the whole campaign to prosecute Donald Trump, a former president, wasn't about going to punish the former president for allegedly tampering in the election. Again, it was a scare tactic to scare those on the right, but they were never scared, because looking at the board 7 steps ahead, they saw a black face as the one prosecuting the former president, a white man and his white male associates, and those white males basically held their resolve. And as they held their resolve, they began looking for information on Fani Willis, who was just completely clueless about what was going to happen to her. And what's happening to her basically is what happens in the system of white supremacy when a black person, like a black bootlick, doesn't know the subtle politics transpiring around them. What happens is they become a political crash test dummy, and this political crash test dummy winds up hitting the wall on impact, and that's basically what's happening to Fani Willis right now. She is on the road to hitting this wall at high speed and crashing and falling completely apart as related to her political career. I mean, her political career at this point is about to be over because with these allegations of misappropriating funds, again, this is a serious charge as related to somebody who is controlling the finances of a prosecutor's office. This is a serious charge, and with this charge, it means that we cannot trust this individual to be able to handle funds as related to the prosecutor's office. And if this can be proven by these whistleblowers with documentation and evidence, then Fani Willis's career is basically over in the state of Georgia. And this basically grinds the entire case against former President Donald Trump and his associates to a complete halt. And it grinds it to a complete halt just in time for the 2024 elections and allows Donald Trump to be able to continue on with his campaign because, again, in this political game of chess, you have Fani Willis, who was playing Candyland, and as she was holding up that pink card, she thought she was going to go on to Candyland, but no, she just took a move as they used pawn e7 to d5 and basically took her straight off the board. And this is the fate that is actually going to be many of the other two bootlicks, your Alvin Bragg and Letitia James, may face soon, because when it comes to black bootlicks, they are political pawns, and political pawns usually don't have a retirement plan because, like Professor Black Truth has said in numerous videos, bootlick is a job without a retirement plan, and Fani Willis may be out of a job sooner rather than later. And sadly, she couldn't see the game because oftentimes when it comes to white supremacy, they always choose people they can get 7 steps ahead of, and they choose those people because these people are caught up in their ego about their degrees. They're caught up in their ego about their 6-figure job. They think they can go out and do anything that they want, like Fani Willis did when she went out here and put her boyfriend on the payroll, and think that they can do whatever they want because they have created a covert contract with white supremacy. And as they've created that covert contract with white supremacy, they don't understand that the deal is one that is not going to be enforced or fulfilled. And usually that's why many of these black bootlicks wind up becoming crash test dummies, and those crash test dummies wind up crashing and burning, and white supremacy make sure that it wins, because what happens with these black bootlicks, they think that they are being appointed to this high position for a reason that will elevate their status, but they just don't understand you're the punchline of a cruel joke if you're selected for this position. And the reason why they are selecting you for this position is because they don't want a white man to be the fall guy, and they want the black person to take the fall. And that's basically what Fani Willis is being set up to do, take the fall as related to this entire case. And these cases are basically, again, being ended because nobody really wanted to prosecute former President Trump. And what's happened is, because the white supremacists on the left don't want to be trumped by the ones on the right, they needed to find some way to get out of this entire situation. And they found a way to get out of this situation by basically just making Fani Willis become the person who's being put on trial and convicted in the court of public opinion. And this is all basically her own doing, because she was so arrogant and got caught up in the attention she was receiving from all of those in white supremacy, to not understand that the white supremacists, basically, when you're dealing with them, you're always at war. And if they're putting you in a position of power and influence, it's not so that you can empower yourself, it's so that they can find a way to take power away from you. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction on the SJS Direct imprint, you can find many of my books on Amazon.com in fiction and nonfiction by clicking the link in the description box. And if you'd like to see me make more videos like this, discussing the subtle politics transpiring around you, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Coming to paperback and e-readers, John Haynes, Illuminati. The man who rules the world takes on the head of the global elite in this action-packed, all-new John Haynes series adventure. Pre-order your copy of John Haynes, Illuminati on Amazon.com and online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.